Welcome back. In today's lecture, I am going to talk about weighted homogeneity and finite time stability. So, using the concept of weighted homogeneity and finite time stability, it is possible to show that various nested algorithm is developed by Professor Levant, and after that sliding mode become famous, and you are able to understand the construction of algorithm if you are able to understand the idea of weighted homogeneity and connection of weighted homogeneity with finite time stability. So I hope that you almost all of you is already aware about the homogeneity, and here I have some new terminology that comes into picture, that is called weighted homogeneity. So I will define it. So whenever we are talking about simple homogeneity, at that time we are talking something like this. Suppose that whenever, if you remember, that whenever we are talking about linear system, at that time what basically we are doing, we are seeing the relation between input and we are seeing the relation between output. And here I have some kind of system. You can interpret this particular system as a some kind of function also, function which is basically mapping from input to output, and whatever output we are getting, that is unique. Now we are telling that this system satisfies the homogeneity property. If you scale this input by alpha, then same scaling factor will appear on the output also. So suppose if you have some relation between input u and this is y, corresponding y you are getting. So if you scale it u alpha, then you are getting alpha into y. So this kind of property, so you all are already well aware about this particular concept. And one more concept I have already discussed, that is the idea of the finite time stability. So finite time stability, whenever we are talking about finite time stability, at that time what we are telling, that system remains stable about the equilibrium point. So suppose if we consider very simple system, that is autonomous system, x dot equal to fx, here x belongs to Rn I am assuming, and x equal to 0 is the equilibrium point. Then what we are telling, that I have two different property. One property that is called stability, and apart from this I have some kind of convergence. And convergence, we are telling that xt equal to 0 for all t greater than equal to t. So I have convergence. So basically we are going to converge to the equilibrium point x equal to 0 in finite time. And what is meaning of stability? It means that I have some kind of bondedness with respect to, so in terms of epsilon and delta, if one can explain, then I have, suppose if I have certain kind of output ball, and here in this particular system output ball I am telling that is xt. So corresponding to that output ball there exists a input ball, and here input is, since this is autonomous system, so basically input is nothing but initial condition xt0, and we are getting xt, that I am interpreting as a output, and this is origin. So what basically we are telling, that if this output ball xt, if I define that output ball as a epsilon, and if system is stable about the equilibrium point, so for every epsilon there exists a delta ball, and delta ball is represented like -0. So for every epsilon greater than 0, there exists, this is symbol of existence, greater than 0 such that this condition holds, xt minus 0 less than delta, that is implies xt, and with respect to origin, so either you can write or not write, that doesn't matter, for all t greater than equal to 0. So if this kind of condition will satisfy, then we are telling that system is stable with respect to equilibrium point. And apart from this, if we are adding this behavior, then we are telling that stability as a finite time stability. Now, two things I have to brought together in this particular lecture. First, we are trying to understand that load of system, large class of system, will not satisfy this kind of homogeneity, because we are telling that only a small class of system, that is linear system, that will satisfy this kind of homogeneity, or simple homogeneity you can tell. And apart from that, if they are satisfy additivity, then we are telling that as a linear system. But it is possible to show that some class of system will not satisfy additivity, but they are satisfy some special class of homogeneity, and that homogeneity is called weighted homogeneity. So I have to define weighted homogeneity. So first I will define the homogeneity as well as weighted homogeneity for function, and after that I will define weighted homogeneity for the vector field, and after that I will come to the differential inclusion. So this is the roadmap of today's lecture, and in today's lecture parallelly I will introduce some more concrete concept, that is flip of solution. I have postponed that discussion till now. In today's lecture I will cover it. So today's lecture is a little bit more involved, more technical. So let us start the today's thought. So we are telling a function. Here you can see that function has n number of argument. So you can think like this. You have certain kind of function, and here input is nothing but x1, x2 up to xn, and this function map to some kind of scalar number, and this is also called functional. So basically a function mapping from Rn to R is said to be homogeneous of degree m if you scale each and every component. So I have component here x1, x2, x3. Now what I am telling, that since I am talking about homogeneous function, so now I am going to scale each element by exactly same weight, where I am assuming that lambda, that is basically greater than 0. Each component of x is multiplied by same constant is here lambda, and after that now it is possible to show that basically this function fx, whatever this initially this f, now this mapping is defined like f lambda x, and here instead of fx I have, because x map to x, x2, xn map to fx, and here I have a scaling lambda power m, so same constant is going to appear here, but here power m, and this power m is called degree. So whenever I have certain kind of function, and if I scale each component of function by some kind of constant weight, and if this kind of number is going to appear, that number is called degree of the homogeneous function. Now let us talk about the weighted homogeneity. So again I have same function. So again if you see carefully, then I have function, or you can tell functional means mapping from, if you can see that domain is multi-valued, but that map to some kind of single number r. So basically now I have here mapping from Rn to R, and this is our function. And again now since I am talking about weighted homogeneity, so at this time I have flexibility. What I am going to do, I am going to see each and every component, and I am going to give different weight to each and every component. And here you can see that first component, if you see the structure, then first component is mapped with weight lambda p1 x1, second is lambda p2 into x2, and similarly I am going to map to lambda pn into xn. So this kind of weighting now I have. So initially if you see the homogeneous function, simple homogeneous function, then weighting remains the same. What is difference here? Weighting is basically different, and after that if I will get same kind of result, you can see that right hand side is remains the same. So basically now I have this mapping I have defined, and here since each component is scaled by different weight, and I have used a scaling factor, I have defined a scaling factor like this particular way, and if same kind of things is going to appear, then we are going to add one more term that is called weighted homogeneous of degree m. If same weight, then homogeneous of degree m. Now this is called weighted homogeneous of degree m, and this particular lambda is called the dilation, and this particular dilation is somehow mapping from Rn to itself. What does it mean? That initially whatever domain I have, so this is our domain of the function. Now I am going to first map this domain by different scaling, and that is called dilation. So I am going to do dilation of lambda power p1 with respect to first element here, second element with different weight, and similarly lambda n last element with lambda power pn into xn. But in this process you can see that domain also lie in Rn, and if you have some kind of vector, if you just scale vector by some constant number, then that remains on the same space. So space is not going to change. Obviously whenever you are mapping from here to here, then domain and range or codomain that not lie on same space, but whenever you are defining the dilation, at that time domains remains the same. Here dilation is 1 or uniform, and here again that will map from Rn to Rn. So in this way we are basically define three different quantity: homogeneous function, weighted homogeneous function, and after that dilation. So whenever we are talking about weighted homogeneity, at that time I have to define dilation. And how basically we are defining dilation, you can see that this number remains the same and this is positive number, and after that is scaling p1 p2 pn. So different scaling we are going to give. Now let us try to see that, means this is just a very simple exercise, that this particular function is homogeneous or weighted homogeneous. So I have constructed different functions, and after that we are going to check one by one that this function is homogeneous, weighted homogeneous or not homogeneous, and this is the solution for simplicity. And here you can see that if you scale x1 by lambda x1 and x2 also by lambda x2, then you can see that 2 that is multiplied and x1 power cube, that is lambda cube, and here again lambda cube comes into picture and lambda cube comes into picture, and here lambda square. So finally if you do lambda into x, I can write, because each component is scaled by same number. So finally what happens, I will get lambda into fx. So same thing, this thing is going to appear after mapping, and lambda power 1, and due to that reason degree we have written that as a 1. Again you can see that this is two-dimensional function. So basically x in this all example I am assuming that that is some kind of column vector that has two component x1 and x2. And now if you are assuming x1 is scaled by lambda x1 and x2 is scaled by lambda x2, then what happens that again this is homogeneous. Why this is homogeneous? Lambda square and here lambda, so lambda cube and lambda cube is going to cancel out. So if you see the scaling lambda, then I have lambda 0 power fx in this second case, in this particular case, and due to that reason degree I have written 0. Now in third function you can see that if you apply same kind of scaling lambda x1 and lambda x2, at that time cube and here 1 will come into picture, but here I have problem because if I scales with same weight, so lambda I cannot able to take out, and due to that reason this is not simply homogeneous. But if you define the dilation, it means that I am going to scale x1 by lambda square x1 and lambda into x2, then what happens, this particular function become homogeneous or weighted homogeneous, you can tell more clearly. And here you can see that lambda square x, so lambda square x is here and lambda cube, so basically 3 plus 2 that is lambda power 5, and actually here lambda square, so lambda power cube comes into picture. So basically now I have this kind of, in third case I have lambda power 5 into fx, and due to that reason degree whatever quantity is going to appear, so here basically I have like this, so 3, so 3 is the degree of the weighted homogeneous function. So this function, particularly this function is not homogeneous, but that is weighted homogeneous. Now you can see that in fourth example again this function is not homogeneous. You can check easily by substituting x1 by lambda x1 and x2 by lambda x2, and it is possible to show that this is not homogeneous, but again this is weighted homogeneous, and at this time you have to define different weight. So it might possible someone may think that every function is weighted homogeneous, but that is not the case. Let us try to see the last example. In last example you can define weight in any fashion, but it is possible to show that this particular function is not homogeneous, neither homogeneous nor weighted homogeneous. That kind of things is there. So a story is that some function which is mapping from Rn to R is homogeneous and some is not homogeneous. Not homogeneous function still might be weighted homogeneous. So again I have three different classes. So suppose if you take all classes of function, then out of them some function, very small class of function is homogeneous. Now if you see, if you enlarge the class, I have there exist class, obviously this class homogeneous class is inside this class, so this class is weighted homogeneous and all other are not either homogeneous or weighted homogeneous. So in this way I have very special class of function which has this kind of property. And why we are talking about map from Rn function f Rn to R. Try to understand this. Just you can take any second order system. If you see any second order system, we are representing system by some kind of differential equation, and if you remember, then if I have second order system, then I have equation like this. I am assuming autonomous system only, but you can assume any class of system f1, f2, x1 and x2. So here try to see these two functions. F1 is basically, here x1 belongs to R and x1 dot also belongs to R. So f x1 and x1 belongs to R and x2 belongs to R. So I need this kind of property f1 that map from R2 to R, and similarly f2 that is another function that map from R2 to R. So similarly, if you have third order system, then I need 3 here, and component wise if you see, then I need this kind of functional only, and due to that reason first I have defined the weighted homogeneity of the functions. So I hope that motivation now become clear to you. Now let us move to the homogeneous vector field. And if you remember the previous classes, at that time I have defined the vector field. And what basically we are telling, suppose you have some system, again for simplicity you can assume that you have some kind of autonomous system, and here x belongs to Rn. So if you see this function f that map from Rn, and this is derivative of x, so that also belongs to Rn. So basically we are talking about mapping from Rn to Rn. So what we are telling, this particular function here, this is vector valued function, because if you have n number of components, so here f also defined as a something like f1x, f2x, and up to fnx. So this is vector valued function. Now what happens, that this particular rate of change, if you consider x as a some kind of position vector, so I have x1 up to xn, that as a position vector, then I can define x dot, that is nothing but some kind of velocity vector, xn dot t, and that I am going to define by some kind of fx. So same kind of fx I have taken this system, so this is called fx. So either you can tell this as a velocity vector, or loosely you can tell as a vector field, both are same. So what we are telling, we are going to fix the definition. So definition is, loosely speaking, the vector field is mapping between two vector spaces. So why I am talking about two vector spaces, you can see here that whenever we are defining any dynamical system, then I have two different set. Either you can take this as an input set, or whatever output set you can define like this. So input set, so whatever initial condition, you can give any kind of initial condition, that is nothing but in form of column vector. So column vector is x1, x2, xn. But whatever output you are getting, that output is some class of function, because every dynamical system behave the property of function, and vector valued function might be. So that this space contain again element, in this space I have two different space. Here I have, in this space I have quantity in terms of the column vector, in this space I have quantity in terms of the function. So basically, and what is role of this system? They are mapping from input to output. So I have two spaces associated with the system. One space, that is input space, and in input space everything is represented as a column vectors, but in output space everything is represented as a function. And you can able to see that by solving this. So you already know that basically xt is nothing but the initial condition xt0 plus t0 to t, and after that f x tau into d tau. So this is our output. So basically my output, if you see that all at output all means x1, x2 and xn, all state is going to reflect. This is nothing but some kind of function. So here I have spaces of function. Here I have input, that is spaces, and here each element in the form of column vector. So this kind of this kind of things you have to understand carefully. And the vector field at each point can be defined like this. It means that if some system is evolving in the space, at that time their rate of change is affected by f1, f2 and fn. So suppose if you have two-dimensional system, then here I have two vector is going to act. If I have n-dimensional system, then n vector is going to act here. Now here you try to understand what is meaning of homogeneous vector field. So whenever we are talking about homogeneous vector field, so somehow here we are going to talk about weighted homogeneous vector field. So what basically we are going to do, we are going to scale out different component by different weight. Lambda r1, lambda r2, lambda rn, like this. So each component I am going to give different weight, and after that I have to make sure, or I have to check that Fi is homogeneous with different weights, that is m plus ri. It means that m remains common everywhere and ri is basically varying on based on the first component, second component and third component. Then we are telling that as a homogeneous vector field. So in order to understand this, I will take very simple example, then you are able to understand. So let us try to see the super twisting algorithm, because now you all are already well aware about this particular form of algorithm. So I am going to take that particular algorithm only, signum x1 plus x2, and after that I have x2 dot equal to k1, and here I have k2 signum x1. And for time being I am assuming that this system is not affected by any disturbance. Here if you remember, here dt is there. Now try to see the vector field. So f1 is k1 x1 power half signum x1 plus x2, and here f2 is k2 signum x1. Now what I am going to do, I am going to define the weight. So I am assuming that x1 is scaled by lambda and a square of x1, and similarly x2 is going to scaled by lambda into x2. So this kind of weight basically we have given here. One can guess the weight by seeing this kind of equation. You can see here that I have x1 power half. So if I have x1 power half and after scaling I have to maintain this, and I have, after substituting this weight, somehow I have to adjust weight such that this remains this function remains the same. So if you do this kind of scaling, so lambda square, lambda is going to common here, and signum x1 is just going to give the sign. So either you can see the sign of x1 and lambda x1. If lambda is positive, then sign is not going to change, and due to that reason I am going to assume this. Here basically I have a square, so that doesn't matter, and plus x2, and x2 is lambda. So here, from here lambda is going to become common, and from here also, because x1 is lambda square and power half, so lambda and lambda is going to become common here. So after scaling I can also able to write that right hand side. If you define f1 and f1 as this kind of things, then I have lambda into f1 into x. So please check it. Now after that what I am going to do, I am going to define, so this whole quantity I have defined for simplicity f(x), f1 x1, and this quantity I am telling as a f2 x. So here if you scale x1 again by lambda square, then you can see that f2, and here I have just one component, so either you can write this and doesn't write this, that doesn't matter. And here I have already told you that even if you can explain you can dilute x1 by lambda square into x1, their sign remains the same, so quantity is not going to change. So basically I can write here again, I have weight, some kind of weight lambda and 1 minus 1, and after that I have f2x, and 1 minus 1 means lambda power 0. Either you can write like this or not write like this, that doesn't matter. Why I have written I will tell you. And here x1 is basically scaled by lambda square, so similar language I am going to write here. So 2 minus 1. Here you can see that one thing is common in this whole scaling. What is that thing? You can see that minus 1 is going to appear here and minus 1 is going to appear here. So that kind of things I have written as a m. And after that 2 and 1, that is ri. So I have given same kind of weight, a square and 1. So that kind of things is ri. So first component 2 is going to appear and second component 1 is going to appear. Due to that reason, we are telling that this particular algorithm, that is, we know the name of this algorithm as a super twisting algorithm, that is their vector field. Vector field means right hand side if you see. So that is weighted homogeneous, and if you perform this kind of dilation and their degree of homogeneity is negative, because here common factor m is -1, you can see. So degree of this is m-1. In this way, we are telling that whatever vector field of this particular super twisting algorithm, that is homogeneous. So in this way, we are defining the homogeneity of any vector field. Now you can, in the next part of this lecture, I will also test the twisting algorithm, and it is possible to show that that twisting algorithm is also weighted homogeneous. So I hope that this thing become clear to you. Now I have taken one more example, and you can see that if you remember my previous lecture, at that time I am talking about Bhatt and Bernstein algorithm, and I have told you that how to adjust the weight. One way what I found that one can also adjust weight like this. So x1 you can scale by 1 by 3 signum x1 and minus k2 and x2 power half signum x1. So here you can see that in this particular example, this is Bhatt and Bernstein algorithm, x1 dot equal to x2, and if x2 dot equal to u, there is no disturbance. Then in previous class we have seen that if in a state of the proportional control k1 x1 minus k2 x2, if you scale x1 by x1 power 1 by 3 signum x1 and x2 you can scale by x2 power half signum x2, and k1 and k2 I am again going to select from Hurwitz matrix. Then what we found that is finite time stable. And in last of this class you are also able to understand the connection why that is finite time stable, but for time being I am just talking about the homogeneous vector field. So you can see here in this particular example, if I scale that x1, so I have basically two component x1 and x2. So I am going to scale x1 by lambda power 3 and x1 and x2. So my dilation is 3 and 2. So I have already told you that you can define any kind of dilation, that doesn't matter. So with this dilation, if you are going to substitute this kind of dilation at this place as well as this place, so signum that is not going to affect, and in place of x2 I am going to substitute this particular dilation. Then what happens, you can observe that x1 power 1 by 3, so lambda will come out. So somehow if you define this whole field as a f2 x1 x2, then I have lambda f2 f1 x2, and you can define this particular thing as a f1, this as a f1 x, again I am defining. So after dilation, what happens that I have x2 is lambda 2 into x2, or in place of x2 also you can write f1 x, something like this. Now you can see here that I am talking about, I am searching for the degree of homogeneity. So how basically we are searching, how basically we are defining. So in place of 2 you can write, because you have already seen that x1 is scaled by cube, so I can write this particular number as a 3 minus 1. Similarly here x2 is scaled by 2, so I can able to write this number by 2 minus 1. So in this particular way of writing, one thing remains actually same, and what is that particular quantity? That particular quantity you can see that -1, this particular -1, and due to that reason we are telling that that particular quantity, if you remember here, that m in this particular thing is called degree. So basically again I have degree, that is -1 and that is negative, and here whatever weight 3 and 2, that is Ri. So in this definition you can see that m plus Ri. So m is -1, Ri is 3 in first case and Ri is 2 in second case, and same weight we have scaled out. So in this way I can able to understand that whatever algorithm we have learned in the previous class, that is also weighted homogeneous. Now let us try to see this particular algorithm in this particular slide. So what now I am going to see, I am going to define the general second order system x1 dot equal to x2 and x2 dot equal to a1 x1 power beta 2 minus beta and a2 x2 by beta. Now a1 a2 beta all are real numbers, so we have to check that under what condition this satisfy the definition of weighted homogeneity, and we have to find out the degree of homogeneity. We have to define the dilation also. So let us try to see that. I have to identify the vector field. So one vector field is this and another vector field is this. So I have defined first vector field as a f1x and second vector field as a f2x, and here x is nothing but x1 and x2. And second stage I have to define the dilation. So I have to proceed in similar way. First I have to identify the vector field, and after that I have to define the dilation, and I am assuming generalized dilation. Due to that reason, what I am assuming that x1 is diluted by lambda. Lambda is some kind of constant, positive constant r1, and multiplied by x1, and this is lambda r2 multiplied by x2. And after that what I have to do, I have to see that if I will scale out each and every component, then what kind of number is going to appear. So here x2, so same kind of number is going to appear, and due to that reason this particular equality I have. Similarly you can do same kind of things for this particular function. This is a little bit complicated function, so try to substitute that. After substituting this, now what is your aim? I have already told you that you have to equate this whatever number that is going to come here, and first component you have a scale by lambda into r1. So r1 you are knowing, m remains the same, m is nothing but whatever degree of homogeneity I have, and that become r2. Similarly here whatever component, that common component, that should be here lambda beta r2 is common component, so that should be equal to this, then only I can take it out, and that is equal to m plus r2. And in this way I have two equations. I know r1 r2, so just I have to solve for m, and it is possible to show that this particular m has infinite many solution. So infinite many way I can define the weighted homogeneity for this particular differential equation or particular system or particular vector field. So please just check it. So this is very simple exercise. Now but if you see this system, so what happens, right hand side of this system, so x2 and a1 x1 power beta 2 minus beta, so nowhere that is discontinuous. But whenever we are talking about the sliding mode control, you might have seen that whatever algorithm we are telling, x1 dot equal to minus k signum x x1 plus d, so this has discontinuous right hand side. Similarly if you are talking about twisting algorithm, we have seen that that is again discontinuous, and whatever higher order sliding mode control we have defined, in definition you can see that I am talking about the discontinuity, means right hand side is discontinuous. So now I have to define the again same kind of concept for the vector field when discontinuity is allowed. And here whatever discontinuity we have seen, what is property of discontinuity, you can see that if by plotting the signum function, I have discontinuity only at the zero distance, and we are telling that discontinuity in zero measure set. So distance between this and this is zero. So I have discontinuity just lie in zero measure set. So we have to define again homogeneity of those kind of system which vector field is no longer continuous. And before going to that, I have to first understand that whenever right hand side is discontinuous, then how to define the solution. And for that, we are telling that we have theory of flip-off. So in today's lecture, I am also going to understand the notion of flip-off or theory of flip-off. So for simplicity, what I am going to do, I am going to assume that I have certain kind of system, and in this particular system, my control U that belongs to R, and at the output, I have, you can assume either single input, or you can assume that all states are going to reflect on the output. So I have single input system. So if you have single input system, and what we have seen that particularly for, if you see carefully in two-dimensional system, then we have defined some kind of sliding surface. It is possible to show that by defining this surface, that is s equal to 0. So some side, either this side is positive, then this side become negative. So somehow this surface for all x1 and x2 is going to divide this plane in two parts. Similarly, I can tell about three-dimensional system if just I have one input. So since one line is x0, due to that reason, upper part might be positive and negative, and lower part might be positive and negative or alternate sign. I am assuming that in n-dimensional space, so this is first quadrant x1 and this is xn, and I am not able to draw that. Due to that reason, I am drawing this kind of vague drawing I am going to do, and I have some kind of sliding surface, and this sliding surface is s into x, that is function of all state equal to 0. Now in this particular surface, I have already told you that in this side, if you see two-dimensional case, then things become little more transparent. That in this side, suppose if s is greater than 0, then what happens, that I have some kind of vector field s dot, and that has certain value. Similarly, if s less than 0, then s dot has certain another value. So delta 1, either I am defining by box, I will clear what is value. And here you can see that what I am assuming, that if s x that is greater than 0, then I am going to apply this kind of control, and if sx less than 0, then I am going to apply this kind of control. And in first order sliding mode control, this become very clear. So I am going to write in same language. So s dot equal to minus k signum s, and here basically s and plus dt. And what we have observed, that in this particular system, when s greater than 0, at that time minus k is going to appear, s less than 0, then plus k is going to appear. So you can see that this is just responsible for the control. This is my uncertainty part. So similar kind of things I have generalized for nth order system, that I have each component, if you see, of this dynamical system. So I have f1, f2, f3, fn. So all are scalar value, means all are functional. f1 xu, so if you put x and u, then map to r. And similarly, I have n number of mapping. So I have already explained this kind of things. Now what I am telling, that s greater than 0, I have component that is positive, and s less than 0, that is negative. And I am also assuming that s, I am taking rate of change. It means that whatever sliding surface I am going to define, that is continuous and smooth. Continuous because I have to take the derivative. After that derivative also, what I am going to assume, that derivative x dot control is going to explicitly appear. We have already seen that. Now what I am going to do, that I'm going to search the solution. So if you see the classical control theory, in classical control theory, one thing is pretty clear, that x dot equal to fx, or u also you can take. If right hand side is continuous, then there exists at least one solution. That is unique or not unique, that is another matter. Again, if we involve Lipschitzness, then we are going to talk about the uniqueness. But if that is continuous with respect to x and u, then at least we have one unique solution. So now try to see the situation. If you are on this side, anywhere in this side, then your system is governed, suppose Sx is greater than 0, then your system is governed by u plus. And if you substitute u plus here, then you have fx into u plus. So x dot here, that is again continuous with respect to x and u, because if you just put x greater than 0, then s dot equal to minus k plus dt. So nowhere discontinuity is involved. Similarly, if you put s less than 0, similar kind of a story I have. It means that I have classical solution that is going to exist beyond this discontinuous, either you can tell line, plane, or higher dimensional space. Now question is that in both side I have solution, and I can assume that is unique solution by putting some more assumption like Lipschitzness or some other thing. Now only I have to make sure that there exists solution in this particular plane. After that I have to assume one more thing, that what we found that solution, once I will hit this sliding surface, then I have to maintain my trajectory along this sliding surface. It means that whatever solution, that should be tangential to the defined sliding surface or discontinuous sliding surface. So let us try to understand that how one can make sure that solution always that is tangential to define or predefine sliding surface or predefined manifold. And due to that reason, we are telling that physical interpretation of Filipov method using regularization. Regularization, it means that I have classical solution in both sides. Now using help of classical solution, I am going to define the solution along this particular manifold. So whenever we are talking about regularization approach, there are several different approach. Whenever discontinuity comes into picture, then how to define the solution. So one of the way that is provided by Filipov, another way that is provided by several people. One of the famous that is given by Professor Utkin. So I am basically going to take help of that particular way. So we assume that sliding occur on the sliding surface S x equal to 0. So I have already told you that if I have second order system, then I am assuming that this is my sliding surface, and that linear sliding surface till now we have just explored, and due to that reason I am drawing that surface only s equal to 0. And if you are just considering two dimension, then this is x1 and this is x2. So two dimension I have, and x is function of x1 and x2. And what we are telling after that, let the discontinuous control be implemented with some imperfection. So I have x dot equal to minus k signum s. I have already told you that whenever we are talking about first order sliding mode control, we are implementing everything at after mapping, after introducing the manifold. I have this kind of equation. Now if you see the definition of signum function, then what we are assuming that exactly at s equal to 0, that is switching between plus to minus. That is not the case. Always there exists several imperfection, and due to that reason what happens that I do not know when perfect switching is occurred. Due to that reason I forget about this particular region, and we are just seeing this side and this side, and we are assuming that two extreme value u plus and u minus that is going to take. It means that I cannot able to define due to imperfection. I do not worry about this particular manifold, because if I have perfection, then only I can exactly maintain this. And whenever imperfection is involved, then it is very difficult to maintain this. So due to that reason, I have just two cases, either that is plus u1 or I have u minus. So same kind of things I have assumed, and that is isolated in time because time doesn't matter here. So if you converge to the sliding surface at t equal to 5 seconds, then this kind of phenomena happens. T equal to 20 seconds, then after that kind of phenomena occur. So time doesn't play any role here. Since discontinuity points are isolated in time, solution exists in the conventional sense. I have already told you that, and I can able to define unique solution in both sides for by seeing the vector field. And if in this side I have control as a u plus, then you can just substitute u plus at the point of control. You can define this solution by seeing the vector field x dot equal to f plus, or you can define the solution on the another side by defining vector field f minus. Now what we are telling that we are going to see the solution in the short time t plus delta t, and what we are assuming that in this interval, so this part is delta t1 and this part is delta t2. So delta t1 time that going to remains in this side of boundary, and delta t2 side this solution is going to remains on that side of boundary. So total side, it means that whenever delta t1 time at that control magnitude u plus is active, and once u plus is active, then you can see that vector field is f1. So x1 dot equal to f plus, and when you are in delta t2, then at that time I have f minus. So if you know x dot, it means that dx by dt equal to fx. So you are able to calculate the distance of this also. How to calculate distance? So average distance delta x1 is f plus into delta t1. Similarly, I can able to define this particular distance, that is multiplied by f minus delta t2. So same kind of things basically I have written here, that state vector in interval delta t. So again I will draw diagram, then things become more clear to you. That I have, again for simplicity I am taken the second order system, but you can generalize it for any order. Now I am on this particular vicinity, and I am going to see the situation in t plus, suppose this time is t, so t plus delta t, and this time is not uniform, so I cannot tell this is delta 1 by delta by 2. So delta 1 I have assumed this, and delta 2 I have assumed this. In this side, if there is f plus, u plus, and in this side I have u minus, then x dot is basically f1 in upper side and x dot equal to f2 in the below side. And due to that reason, total average distance delta x, that is the rate of change, or you can assume that as a velocity. So velocity multiplied by time. So velocity is f1 because x you can interpret as a position, then x dot as a velocity delta t1, and after that f2 and delta t2. So due to that reason, this expression comes into picture. After that, now once you understood the position, then you are also able to calculate the average velocity. So how to calculate average velocity? Average distance by average time. And if you see this figure, from here to here, my distance is delta t and total distance is delta x. So average velocity is delta x by delta t. Now just you can substitute everything, because delta t is delta t1 by delta t2 we have already assumed. So I can also able to group this whole system like this. So this is vector field f1 and f2. Now if I define alpha by delta t1 by delta t is delta t1 plus t2. So I have defined this quantity as a alpha. It is possible to show, since delta t is delta t1 plus delta t2, and due to that reason it is possible to show that this is nothing but 1 minus alpha, and where alpha is nothing but lie between 0 to 1. Why 0 to 1? You can see that delta t1 by delta t. So if this time both time are exactly equal, so most of time that is not exactly equal. Due to that reason I haven't put equality here. But suppose if delta t1 this time is 0, very small, it means that I have just actually approached from second side, then that is 0. So equality sign is also valid here. And finally, if you see, then I can able to see that average velocity is basically represented by alpha f1 1 minus alpha f2, where alpha is lie between 0 to 1, 0 is also included. And if you remember, then this kind of set this is the definition of convexity. So, and here alpha and alpha 2, that is any quantity, and f1 and f2 are two fields. So basically I have now two fields. You can try to see my finger here. So I have f1 and f2, and alpha I can take. So I can, any combination I can define. So you can just rotate it. So this is nothing but I have convex hull, and I have to make sure that trajectory is only going to remain inside this convex hull. And how to do that? Then only I can maintain the tangent. So for that I have to maintain delta t tending towards 0. So what I am telling here, if you have f1 and this is f2, so trajectory means this kind of rotation I have, and after that trajectory I have to maintain tangential to this, then only I can slide along the sliding surface. And for that, if you see the discontinuity, so this is delta t, so I have to make sure that delta t tending towards 0, then I have vector field along this sliding surface, that is given like this. So how to define solution? Because x dot, now once I know the vector field, I can define the solution also. So just I have to see the nearby vector of the discontinuous discontinuous manifold, and after that, by identifying that, I have to take average of that. So average of that particular quantity, once delta t is tending towards 0, that will tells us what is velocity vector along the x dot. So in this way I can able to define the unique solution also. So now let us try to see the remark. So the state trajectory during sliding mode are in sliding surface s equal to 0. So parameter alpha should be selected such that state trajectory vector of system is tangential to the plane. So how basically solution comes into picture? So whenever I have algorithm like x dot equal to minus k signum s plus d, so this term is adjust themselves in such a way such that it is possible to show that s dot is always everywhere that is tangential to the sliding surface. And if that is tangential to the sliding surface, then I can tell that I have unique solution. And mathematically, in order to tell that, I can also tell that since s dot tangential, it means that s dot should be 0, s should be 0, and s dot means whatever average velocity, that should be also 0, then only I can able to maintain this sliding surface. So you can also able to calculate from that. And s dot, since s is function of x all state, so if you try to calculate s dot, then I have dou s by dou x, and after that dx by dt. So dou x by dou t, either you can write like this or write like this, that doesn't matter. So partial derivative of s with respect to x1 up to Sn, I have to write like this. So in this way, mathematically I can able to talk that if s dot equal to 0, and in that way I am able to calculate the value of alpha. So if system will choose alpha like this, then I can able to make sure that motion is always tangential to this sliding surface s equal to 0. And after that, in using this calculation, simple calculation, they have means actually Professor Utkin has shown that whatever flip off, what is main theme of flip off? Whenever you have discontinuity, then how to define the solution? So using regularization method, you are able to define the solution. So that kind of things is actually given by the Professor Utkin, and this kind of things you have to understood to know that whenever you have system with discontinuity, then how to define unique solution. So actually whenever you are seeing any development, any part of control system, then I have two things: how things work and why things work. So till now I have always talking how things work. Now I am talking why things work. Why we are able to maintain trajectory along the sliding surface. What is basically, what kind of phenomena actually come into picture. Due to that reason I am able to maintain trajectory along the sliding surface. And you might have seen that since I am taking single input system, so if you see this side and this side, so if s is greater than 0, then at that time s dot should be less than 0. Similarly, this, if s is less than 0, then s dot should be greater than 0. So how do one can maintain? So if you see these two inequality, if I have this kind of situation, then I can able to further tell that s equal to 0 is maintained. So similarly means here s dot is less than 0, s plus I am talking about. So I have s greater than 0, at that time this inequality should be satisfied. And if s is less than 0, then this inequality should be satisfied. Now this is mathematical interpretation using the help of average velocity or instantaneous velocity. Now try to understand in the geometrical point of view. So in sliding mode control, our aim is to maintain a control law so that state trajectory are confined to the sliding manifold. I have several times I have told you that the design process of sliding mode control is like this, and most of time I am drawing this second order system. So what we are telling that in finite time I have to converge to this manifold, and after that I have to maintain this manifold. So I have to, our aim to design control such that if my initial condition is here, so first I will in finite time I will reach to the manifold, and after that I have to manifold, I have to maintain this manifold. So from geometrical point of view, if you see from here to here, so using from here to here, once you are not here, then no discontinuity comes into picture. So in classical way you are able to come here. After that, once you are here, then actually classical solution will not exist. So at that time what kind of phenomena basically occur such that we are able to maintain trajectory along this. So that is the geometrical explanation in this point. The equivalent control method does the same job. It replaces the discontinuous control on the intersection of the switching surface. We have already seen that if I know the solution in this side or vector field in this side, then vector field along this surface is convex combination of both. So due to that reason we have written it replaced the discontinuous control, because now there is no discontinuity. Once we start talking about the vector field, that is average of both. So due to that reason we are telling that it replaced the discontinuous control on the intersection of the switching surface by continuous one. The state velocity vector lie on the tangential manifold. So we have seen that alpha f1 and plus 1 minus alpha f2, and this is no longer discontinuous, this is continuous. So what basically, and this is coming from the regularization way. So geometrically, whenever we are talking about the Filipov solution by Utkin way or regularization way, then discontinuous control is replaced by continuous control inherently. We are not going to do externally. Inherently that process is started such that we are able to maintain our trajectory tangentially. That is the interpretation. And mathematically if you see, then I have already told you that suppose now I have generalized system, nth order system. Now what you can do, you can again define the manifold. Now I have n number of, we have already seen that whenever I have multi input case, then how to design sliding surface. But again all inequality remains the same, and how to calculate equivalent control, you can just put s dot equal to 0. So this is the equivalent control now. And after that, once you are in sliding surface, then this kind of solution is basically given by this particular differential equation, and this is no longer discontinuous differential equation. So one can able to calculate the unique solution, and due to that reason we are telling that equivalent control will give us one of the way to find unique solution whenever we have certain kind of discontinuity inside the dynamical system. That is the interpretation. And I have already told you that this kind of interpretation is just in order to convince ourselves that why things work, How things work, we are already well aware that how to define linear manifold, how to come to the sliding surface, this kind of things. So for occurrence of ideal sliding mode, it was assumed that control change at very high frequency, because I have already told you that during this approximation I have initially taken this time as a delta t, and after that I am forcing delta t tending towards 0. So frequency, if you see, then that is 1 by delta t. So that should be very large, means infinitely large, and due to that reason we are telling that whenever we are talking about sliding mode, we are assume that control means if delta t is tending towards 0, means control in this side is u plus and u minus, so that is changing with very high frequency, such that a state vector is maintained. So a state vector, whatever a state vector, so that will maintain along the sliding surface, it means that will maintain like this. In reality, however, various imperfection makes the state oscillate about the vicinity of intersection of control component and are switching with some kind of finite frequency. So what basically, if you see in the real situation, then once trajectory come here, then they will cross it, and after that again this is attractive, so cross, recross, and this kind of things comes into picture. Due to that reason, this kind of things, delta t always remains finite, and when delta t remains finite, it means that always some oscillation start occurring, means control sometime take plus value, minus value, and sometime this kind of phenomena is nothing but that is called chattering also, or oscillation, you can tell, oscillation of high frequency. And this high frequency always contains some kind of slow component, and that slow component is nothing but continuous. So how basically plant is working, suppose I have some kind of plant, and here in order to apply some kind of control, I am using some kind of actuator here, and here I have sensor in order to collect the output of the system. So if you see the plant, most of plant is nothing but low pass filter. So even if high frequency component is going to hit, they just filter out the low frequency component, and once this has a low frequency component, it is possible to show that whatever high frequency control, if you pass through low pass filter and if you collect that slow component, then actually now system, if you see the differential equation of system fx, you that this part is just containing the slow component, so they are not going to respond the high frequency component, they are just going to response for the slow component. It means that vector field, whatever vector field or equivalent vector field is generated, that is just due to slow component, and due to that reason I have unique solution. So that is another interpretation, and it is possible to I have already told you that using this phenomena only I am able to estimate the disturbance whenever we are exactly at the sliding surface. And mathematically output, since I have told you that means if I pass control with low pass filter, then whatever value, that is nothing but equivalent control. So one can also calculate the equivalent control by passing it through low pass filter. So that is the interpretation, where tau is the time constant of the filter, and delta is the bandwidth. I have already told you that manifold at that time delta t. So this particular bandwidth we have defined by delta. So that should be very small. So if that is very small, then only I can tell that I can able to maintain trajectory along the sliding surface. And due to that reason, what we have remark is to eliminate the high frequency component of the control in sliding mode, frequency should be much more higher, means time constant, means we have to switch with very high speed, and and we have to satisfy this kind of condition also. Finally, the time constant of low pass filter should be made to tend to the 0, because the filter should not distort the slow component. So since I have to filter out the all low pass component, and that is the physical interpretation, another physical interpretation why I have to keep the time constant of filter that is as small as possible. So I have started with homogeneous function. After that, what we found that whenever we have some kind of dynamical system, then how to define the weighted homogeneity of the vector field or homogeneity of vector field. And after that, now we understood that whenever discontinuity comes into picture, then how to define solution. Is it possible, or is it possible to define unique solution or not? And what we have found that at least we have certain way to come up with the discontinuity whenever I have some kind of discontinuous vector field. So now what is another challenge in terms of homogeneity, that I have solution of system with sliding mode is characterized by Filipov sense. I have already told you that in first order sliding mode control that we have to maintain sigma equal to 0, but sigma dot that should be discontinuous, and using discontinuity we have to maintain sigma equal to 0 for all finite time t greater than equal to t0. After that, what is definition of second order, sigma equal to 0, sigma dot equal to 0, but sigma dot double dot should be discontinuous, and using discontinuity I have to maintain sigma and sigma dot equal to 0 for all t greater than equal to t. So now if you see the control input, so closed loop system, whenever we have closed loop system x dot equal to f into x into u, some kind of, or I have already told you that in this particular course I limit myself on this particular system. So if you design control in this way and if you couple here, then vector field is no longer continuous, and due to that reason, in order to understand the solution, I need another approach that is called Filipov sense. And how to understand Filipov sense physically, we have just seen this. And what basically Filipov sense is telling, that they are giving way to construct differential inclusion from given discontinuous field. So try to understand a simple thing, that whenever I have discontinuity like this, minus k signum x plus dt, so I have no problem that I can define vector field like k plus dt once I have x greater than 0. For x less than 0, I can define vector field like k plus dt, but x equal to 0, we have already seen this kind of definition plus dt. So due to Filipov definition only we are able to construct, we have to write vector field in this way. And you can see here that here I have some quantity that lie between minus k to k. So I have infinite many differential equation, and this is called differential inclusion. So in this way, whenever discontinuity comes into picture, we are expressing vector field like this. And after that, just now what we have seen, that in order to define the unique solution, I can replacing this vector field by some kind of equivalent vector field, and after that we are talking about unique solution. So basically, whenever we are designing some kind of control based on sliding mode, then I have closed loop system is represented by some kind of differential inclusion. And due to that reason, we have to define homogeneity of differential inclusion, because we are talking about the some kind of construction of algorithm. Now we are going to talk about in the next lecture, that how to construct the sliding mode control or higher order sliding mode control based on concept of homogeneity. So first I have to define the homogeneity of differential inclusion, because whenever we are talking about sliding mode control, at that time discontinuity is implicitly involved. And once I have discontinuity, then I have to talk about the differential inclusion, just we have seen now. And due to that reason, we have to define the how to tackle or how to take care about the homogeneity of differential inclusion. And result is that without proving, I am writing all result. Let a piecewise continuous vector field f. So what we have seen, that if you see that this system only minus k signum s plus dt. So if you see carefully, then s greater than 0 and s greater than 0 I have minus kt plus dt. So and here s dot minus k plus dt, so this is piecewise continuous. Similarly, when s greater than 0, then s dot equal to k plus dt, again this is piecewise continuous. I can assume that is piecewise continuous. I forget about this point. So due to that reason I am writing this result. Let a piecewise continuous vector field f. So I do not worry about s equal to 0. F be homogeneous. I am assuming that individual is homogeneous, and we know the degree. Whenever some vector field is continuous, then I know what is the homogeneous degree of that particular homogeneous degree of that particular vector field. And since when we are talking about the weighted homogeneity, so I have to define the some kind of dilation. Then what happens that I can able to express this whole vector field in terms of continuous, and after that one differential inclusion. So in some kind of set valued form we have just seen here. Here you can see that this is set valued form, because x equal to 0 I have infinite many solutions. So this is set valued representation, because at x equal to 0 I have set minus k to k, and due to that reason that is set valued representation. Then the flip of set valued map associated with f is also homogeneous with degree m. What we are telling that piecewise continuous, if this is piecewise continuous with dilation m, then there is no need to worry about the discontinuous point. Automatically that is homogeneous with respect to same degree, that is m. So in this way I can extend our notion of weighted homogeneity of continuous vector field to some kind of discontinuous or piecewise continuous vector field. After that, one important theorem that I am going to use in this whole course, that is the right hand side of differential equation be piecewise continuous, homogeneous of degree m less than 0. Now we know that whenever I have some kind of piecewise discontinuous, so for simplicity you can just assume this simple expression only, k signum s. A scalar case first try to understand, and after that obviously we will generalize for the vector case. So what we are telling, I have differential equation. So you can, for time being, you can interpret differential equation like this with discontinuous piecewise continuous right hand side. So I am not worrying about s equal to 0, then that is piecewise continuous. Here you can see that this is homogeneous. You can map s by any lambda power s. Lambda is anything, that doesn't matter. You can see that by scaling this, if lambda is greater than 0, lambda power p you can write, then what happens, same kind of quantity will appear. So I can, and after that lambda power 0 will appear, so I can able to write that as a lambda p minus p. So same way we are defining p minus p, and this is the degree of the homogeneity. So I can take that whenever I have this kind of algorithm, that is p their homogeneous degree is p, so that doesn't matter. So I am telling that I have degree of homogeneity m less than 0, and if you consider the super twisting algorithm just now we see, then degree of homogeneity is minus 1 with respect to dilation 2 and 1. So here r1 r2 for generality, so generalization r1 r2 rn. So what is result now? If differential equation is globally asymptotically stable, and if their vector field is piecewise continuous and homogeneous of negative degree with certain dilation, then that equilibrium point is also globally finite time stable. It means that you have to just check two things, that system equilibrium point is globally asymptotically stable or not. Second thing, that is their degree of homogeneity is negative or not. So we are talking about weighted homogeneity. So if you just check these two things, then they will tell that, means what is final result, that your equilibrium point is also globally finite time stable. And this is very elegant result, because most of time whenever we are defining Lyapunov function, So we know that Vx should be greater than 0, Vx equal to 0, that is 0, and V dot less than 0 for all x, and if Vx is radially unbounded, then that is globally asymptotically stable. Now whenever you try to establish this kind of inequality, in order to show finite time stability, you might remember that we have to somehow express everything like this. So finally, in order to get this, most of time we are feeling difficulty, too much difficulty. It is very difficult to establish this, but here I can resolve the difficulty level. Just I have to make sure that this is Vx is radially unbounded, and after that that will satisfy this kind of condition. And degree of homogeneity, that is pretty easy to check. If that is negative, then I can tell that equilibrium point is globally finite time stable. And due to that reason, based on this theorem, in next class I will tell you that several algorithms for generalized order is defined by the Professor Levant. And idea of proof is also very simple. So in this today's lecture, since we have already seen the convergence proof of twisting algorithm by geometrical way, so using same whatever we have learned just now, we are trying to prove the convergence of twisting in finite time. And in this particular way of proof, I am going to use the idea of weighted homogeneity. So now I hope that you are remember this algorithm. This is super twisting algorithm, and whenever I have super twisting algorithm, then I have a structure something like this. So finite time we can converge. This is nothing but sigma, and this is sigma dot. And now for time being, I am assuming that there is no disturbance. After that, proposition is that we have already seen this proposition that if k1 greater than k2 and that is greater than 0, then I can tell that sigma and sigma dot both equal to 0 in finite time, and that finite time t greater than equal to some finite time t. I have to prove that. And just now what we have seen that if some system is globally asymptotically stable, so and after that vector field corresponding to set valued map is homogeneous with negative degree, then whatever equilibrium point, here equilibrium point is sigma sigma dot, both are globally finite time stable. So I have to show these 2 points. I hope that last point is very easy. Due to that reason, I will show this point in the last part of this lecture. First I am going to show you that equilibrium point sigma and sigma dot is asymptotically stable or not. So I am going to represent system in a state space form. Several times I have written this, so I am not going to repeat it. Now what I am going to do, I am going to define the Lyapunov function. And Lyapunov function I have defined k mod x1 power plus half x2. So here you can see that Vx is greater than 0 for all x, because this is absolute value. So any negative positive, this is positive and this is positive. So summation of two positive number is positive. And if you put x equal to 0, then that equal to 0. So just now I have to show that V dot less than 0 for all x. And this particular function is also radially unbounded, because if x tending towards infinity, x means x1 x2 tending towards infinity, then Vx is also tending towards the infinity. So that is radially unbounded. So if we are able to prove up to here, then I can able to show that x1 and x2 are tending towards 0 as t tending towards infinity. So that is meaning of globally asymptotically stable. So let us see that that Vx, so positive definite, continuously differentiable, but this is not continuously differentiable at x1 equal to 0, because absolute value, so that is differentiable everywhere. So I can able to calculate the derivative, because last, in order to show global asymptotic stability, I have to calculate the derivative, and after that I have to show that is less than 0. But for all x1 not equal to 0, this is perfectly differentiable, but at x1 equal to 0, that is not differentiable. And after that I have to check the derivative of this. So if V dot less than equal to 0, then that is just stable. So somehow I have to make sure that v dot less than 0, or I have to add some kind of additional element such that from v dot less than equal to 0 I can conclude that system equilibrium point of this particular system is globally asymptotic stable. So that kind of way we have, that is called Lascelles invariance principle. I will discuss that. So first what I am going to do, I am going to calculate the derivative and I am going to remove that point. So here I am not worrying about what is happens at x1 equal to 0. So just I am going to isolate that point, and after that I am going to calculate v dot, and it is possible to show that I have constructed Lyapunov function such that v dot is less than equal to 0. But this v dot is less than equal to 0. This is also 0 in this particular set. And why we are telling this set, you can see that here in v dot I have expression like minus k2 mod x2. So that is no longer depending on x1. So whatever value of x1, so it might possible if you draw the axis, then things become more clear, that x1 and x2. So what we are telling, that if x2 is 0, then x2 is 0 means this particular line. So even if x1 is non-zero, so this point is my equilibrium point. But now what I am telling, that if you are anywhere in this particular line, so in this particular line x2 equal to 0, so v dot is equal to 0. So basically v dot is 0 means v become constant. So now, but in order to prove the asymptotic stability, I have to prove that v dot less than 0. And due to that reason, I have written the time derivative of candidate Lyapunov function. This is candidate Lyapunov function is not strictly decreasing, because at least on this set that become constant, and because time derivative of this equal to 0, due to that reason I have written that as a constant. So now I have to apply something else, but at least I can claim that this system is stable. So I means equilibrium point is stable. So x1 and x2 both are stable. So I cannot able to claim that x1 tending towards 0 and x2 tending towards 0. So in order to show that, one way, when you have something, you have not a strict inequality here, v dot less than 0 means that is not strictly decreasing, that is only semi negative definite. Then we have one way that is given by Professor Lascelles, and that is known as Lascelles invariance principle in nonlinear control theory. And using that, it is possible to show that if I have v dot less than equal to 0, and if I have some additional condition, then I can able to prove the global asymptotic stability. So same kind of things I am going to actually revise here, but here one restriction: whatever theory that is developed, that is based on this particular assumption, that right hand side of the system that is continuously differentiable. So same kind of things I have written, fx is continuous. So if fx is continuously differentiable, means discontinuity is not there, then I can able to write this principle that if sigma Rn be positively invariant. Now you all are assume that what is meaning of positive invariant, means if I start from some set and in all positive time, future time, if I will remains there, that is called positively invariant set. Compact set means that is closed and bounded. And if you define Lyapunov function is mapping from Rn to R plus, be a continuously differentiable function, v dot less than equal to 0 in some set sigma. So just now what we have seen, that in this particular system, that what is my sigma is where x2 equal to 0. So x1 may be anything, and let E be the set of all point in sigma. So yeah, if you remember the previous example, then I am going to talk about this all point of this set of all. This is set sigma, such that v dot x equal to 0. So in this particular line, actually v become constant. So constant means it might possible that will not move further. That kind of situation may be there. Let M be the largest invariant set in E, and largest invariant set is nothing but equilibrium point we are telling. Then every solution starting in sigma approaches M. So if in this set I have some kind of largest invariant set, it is possible to show that nowhere trajectory is going to stop, they will going to converge to the equilibrium point. But that is true provided fx is continuously differentiable and the largest invariant set E is only the equilibrium point. In this set you can see that I have largest invariant set, so we will see that what is largest invariant set. So what I am going to do, I am going to first what I am going to see the difficulty. So difficulty is the principle cannot be used directly. We have already told you that our vector field is discontinuous. V is not continuously differentiable because V is somehow only differentiable when x1 is not equal to 0. And equilibrium point is finite time stable. One difficulty with finite time stability, try to understand that. Here we are telling that some trajectory is converged to this sliding surface s equal to 0 in finite time. And suppose I have some trajectory from here, so that will converge here. So after, if you are here, then you are not able to understand the either trajectory is coming from this side or this side. But in forward time you are able to understand the behavior of the actually trajectory. But in asymptotic stability you can see that always we are converging, on nowhere we are going to actually meet. So due to that reason I have actually invariance in both directions. Or I can also tell that I can able to track future as well as past. So if you are here, you are able to understand that you are coming from which direction. So in forward time as well as backward time I am able to understand that I belongs to this particular set. So whenever you have something continuously differentiable and asymptotic stability, then this kind of situation. But here we know that I am going to prove the finite time stability, so this kind of situation is not there. So due to that reason we have to again relook the Lascelles invariance principle for this class of system, and actually this kind of result is actually available in literature, that if there exists a Lipschitz continuous positive definite Lyapunov function, it is possible to show that this whatever Lyapunov function I have defined mod x plus half k x to a square, that is locally Lipschitz. So whenever so if that is locally Lipschitz and time derivative is semi-definite like this, and M is largest positive invariant set, then it is possible to show that M is tending towards infinity. So what happens that we have modified the Lascelles invariance principle, and in Lascelles invariance principle now continuously differentiability things is not required, just if Lyapunov is Lipschitz. So whenever we are talking about Lipschitzness of some function, suppose if I have some function fx is Lipschitz, then I have to show this like this. There exists some kind of L, and you can take any norm. So norm 2 suppose we are taking, so this kind of things, and locally it is possible to show that is locally Lipschitz, and due to that reason I can able to apply this kind of theorem. Now what you can do, first you try to see the set. So we have identified the set, we have already seen that derivative of Lyapunov function is semi-definite. Now at some point c equal to 0, so inside this set, now what I am going to do, there is no problem on this axis, no problem anywhere in this space. I have just problem along this particular line, and due to that reason what I am going to do, I am going to select some point on this particular line, this is c0. So once this point is c0, then I have minus k signum x1 minus k2 signum x2. So x1 is finite, due to that reason minus k, either that is plus k or minus k based on the location of c here or here. If c on this side, then that is plus minus k, and due to that reason from here to here I have written plus minus k. But x2 equal to 0, so signum x2 at x2 equal to 0 might be taken value, that is minus 1 minus 2 plus 1, and due to that reason, and k2 signum x2, because algorithm is k1 signum x1 minus k2 signum x2, and x2 at x1 x2 0, that is plus minus 1. Due to that reason I have written minus k plus k2, and due to that reason now I have vector field on this particular axis, that is either either minus k1 is, you can take minus k1 minus k2 minus k1 plus k2, or sometime if this is plus k, then plus k1 minus k2 and k1 plus k2. So in this way, either means I have defined field on all possible side, in this side also and this side also. So this is the actually situation. So x1 dot equal to 0, because x1 dot equal to x2 and x2 equal to 0. Due to that reason, I have to just identify what is the behavior on this set, because I have to show that largest invariant set is only equilibrium point. That kind of things I have to show. Now you try to see that I have this vector field is like this. Now observe if k1 is greater than k2. So during the proposition I have assumed k1 greater than k2. So I have to show why I haven't assumed this k1 less than equal to k2. So somehow I have to show that this is not valid choice. So now observe that if k1 less than k2, then 0, providing x2 equal to 0 as a flip-flop trajectory with largest invariant set E. However, if k1 greater than k2, then once k1 greater than k2, you can see that 0 is nowhere inside this, and due to that reason only one invariant set. If x2, because I have situation like this, x1 dot equal to 0 and x2 dot equal to, if that is some kind of number, then I cannot able to get x2 equal to constant. But here, suppose if you select k1 less than k2, then this number is negative and this is if k2 then positive. So between negative and positive I have somewhere I have 0. So there exists some situation where this kind of things, and when x2 dot equal to 0, it means that I have some kind of situation where I have x2 equal to c is also there, but I have to maintain x2 equal to 0. Due to that reason, if I select k1 greater than k2, then this possibility is going to eliminated. So I have just this kind of field, and it is possible to show now that x2 dot is never 0, that is non-zero. So what happens, trajectory again x1 dot equal to 0, so and x2 dot equal to 0 and x2 is non-zero, so again this become non-zero, and once this become non-zero, then again finally after some time what happens, v dot less than 0. So I have just one choice, that I will converge, and I will converge to the largest invariant set, and that largest invariant set is equilibrium point. So in this way I can able to select k1 greater than k2. So by seeing vector field I can able to calculate the condition on gain, and if I select k1 greater than k2, then largest invariant set is just origin. Now second thing I have to prove, in order to prove the finite time stability, I have to show that that is negative homogeneous. So I have defined dilation like this. I have identified the original vector field, and I will write the, so this step I hope that that is similar like super twisting. So what I am going to do, x2, so scaling is lambda x2, so I can write 2 minus 1, and here lambda 1 x1, lambda square x1 and lambda square x2, and again I have to maintain same value of m, and here ri, so ri is 2, so 2 minus 1, and here r2 is 1, so here weighted homogeneity is m equal to minus 1, so that is negative homogeneous. So here we have proved that this is globally asymptotically stable. Here I have proved that this is negative homogeneous. So finally x1 dot equal to x2 and x2 dot equal to minus k signum x without any uncertainty we are telling. So that will satisfy both property with respect to that particular Lyapunov function, and with help of Lascelles invariance principle. In this way, using Lyapunov way, I can prove the finite time stability of the twisting algorithm also. So now let us try to conclude this lecture. So in this lecture, what we have seen several points. So first point, what we have observed that some function is not only homogeneous, they have certain property. If that is not homogeneous, then they have certain property that is called weighted homogeneity. So with respect to a specific dilation, I can able to define the weighted homogeneity. Similarly, I can extend that notion for vector field, and whenever we are talking about system governed by discontinuous control action, and if discontinuity lie at the zero measure, then I can able to express system by piecewise continuous, and at that time I am again able to define the weighted homogeneity for that particular class of differential inclusion. And if system has negative weighted homogeneity, and if equilibrium point is globally asymptotically stable, it is possible to show that whole system is finite time stable. Now in the next class I am going to take help of these concept weighted homogeneity and try to search some different kind of algorithm, or develop some kind of, or discuss some kind of algorithm that is developed by Levant and other researchers. So with this remark I am going to close the today's lecture. So thank you very much.